thank you everyone for joining me this evening. I have to start with one question. Who in here uses makeup? And if it's not on a daily basis, maybe on a special occasion. Okay, so all of you, except for you. Okay. So the second question is to follow up with that. When you do your makeup, do you absolutely love the outcome? A little bit of maybes. Okay. So it sounds like you guys are like I was when I first started. And it's kind of a hit and miss when you first begin with makeup. And sometimes you walk out and you feel good, and then other times you're just kind of like, what the hell was I thinking? So since becoming a professional makeup artist, I've learned certain techniques, tips and tricks, products to use, what not to use, and I'm going to share that knowledge with you today. But before we begin, let's talk about where contouring came to be. So Faith Yu, who is a chief editor of Byrdie.com, posted an article titled 1500 to 2015, A History of Contouring. And she states in this that contouring actually became a part of theater in the 1500s with the Elizabethan England theater professionals, and they would actually put chalk and soot on their face because there wasn't lighting, so they had to make sure that their audience in the back could see their facial expressions. And because of this is where contouring came about. Now you fast forward centuries and centuries, and then you have the drag queens that actually were still on stage, but they still had to have those facial feminine features with a man's face, but they still had to have it very, very extreme in order to see it. And now today, contouring is kind of like an everyday thing. Thank you, Kim Kardashian, because we want to look like Kim Kardashian every day. So now that you know the history of where contouring began, let's go to where do we start? What products do we use? What are we looking for? And after speaking with Erica Smith, who was rated one of the top 20 makeup artists in Dallas by D Magazine, on her website she quoted that contouring is to define the areas that you want to hide. So the jawline, the lower cheekbones, maybe even the forehead area if you have a high forehead. And then highlighting is to do exactly that. It's to highlight and bring forth anything that you want to emphasize. So it's the higher cheekbones, the T-zone area. And with that, knowing that we have to shade certain areas and hide certain areas, and then we need to brighten certain areas, that brings me to the brushes that we use. Or the shades, the shades that we use. And the rule of thumb is you're supposed to be about 2 shades darker than your normal face color. Now, if you're a beginner and you don't know where to start with 1 shade darker, and you can kind of play with that. Now, this is for powder. This isn't for foundation. So with that, knowing that we have powder to apply to our faces and where we need to apply it, this brings me to the brushes. And the brushes are really, really vital. It's almost like a painter with a painting. You have a blank canvas, and then you have your tools. So I'm going to introduce a couple of brushes that I like to use for contouring. And so that brings me to these items right here that I'm going to introduce. So this one right here is from MAC. It's the 1505. It is a full synthetic brush, and the reason I like synthetic brushes is because with synthetic brushes, the bristles actually form together and create a more seamless application. And the same with this one. This is the MAC Forever 242. And it does the same thing. Now it's smaller, so it would be in the crease of the eyes or the nose area, maybe the chin area, depending upon your face structure. And this right here is your brush cleanser. Now the brush cleanser is imperative for when you're doing your makeup, because when you're doing makeup with brushes, first of all, it's easier to clean than sponges, right? You can't, brushes are terrible, or sponges are terrible. So with the brushes, you use the cleaner because it cleans all of the bacteria. You know, you're touching things and then you're rubbing your face, or you're letting your dog lick you at the end of the day and then you're rubbing your face. So there's constant bacteria that we are just not aware of getting onto our face. So it's imperative that you have brush cleanser. Now on to splurge or not splurge with the brushes. It's not so much the makeup that you use, it's the brushes. The brushes or that's the foundation of how to apply your makeup. So you have brushes that are more expensive, like the MAC and the Makeup Forever. I think the MAC was $42 and then the Makeup Forever was $30-something. But if you're just beginning, you might not need a more expensive brush. If you don't have a passion for makeup, if you're not looking to be an aspiring makeup artist, spending all of that money on brushes might not be what you need to do. However, when you purchase expensive brushes, they last longer and they don't shed. And the worst part and the most annoying part of shedding brushes is that while you're applying your makeup, you're constantly having to pick off all of these little hairs off of your face. Also, they don't last near as long as a more expensive brush. So they're just not made as high quality of other brushes. So with that, I'm going to bring up my model, Miss Lindsay, and she's going to sit up here. And I'm going to do a demonstration on how to contour your face. Now this is the MAC 150 that I usually use for around the face. And as you can see on this, these are typically the different face shapes that you have. However, you have to know what your face is, because obviously you can have a round face and it says not to highlight here, but if you have a round face with a higher forehead, obviously you need to highlight that. So keep that in mind when you're trying to highlight. So I'm going to start with my big brush and go in with my Tarte powder. Come over here. Here we go. And I'm just going to get a little bit off of the ends because you don't want to start with a lot of product. It's better to work with little product and build up than it is to a lot and have to start all over again. And I continue to tap the excess because of the fact that it's you save more money in the long run when you tap off the excess. And what this is doing is it's just providing more depth for the face. It doesn't look like you took your face and planted it into a bowl of chalk. Nobody wants that, right? Nobody wants that. But we want to define these areas. So I'm contouring with the darker that I have and creating more of a jawline. You can see that in the video. Turn this way. And then I'm going to do the same with this area. And you start from the top of your ear line and just come down. And the reason I like this brush is because it's so good at applying and then also beautifully blending everything in. Now, and I did start Lindsay, she already has a base foundation, so that's really important. Anytime that you're highlighting, please start with the base foundation, because then it would just, your face would look dirty. We don't want to look dirty. And so since I've applied this line right here, all I'm going to do is use the same brush to just blend out and make it look more natural. Now with the 242, what I love to do, and this is actually used, it was created for the crease within the eye, but what I love to do, because this blender is amazing, I live for this blush, or this brush. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Makeup Forever palette and at the same time just create a little bit of highlight down here. Look up. And what this first does is it takes away the fact that she's a mom of two. And that we're all tired with children. And secondly, what it does is it brings out not only her cheekbones, but it highlights the under areas. Okay. And you can actually take that all the way around and blend that out throughout. And I'm going to do the same to the other eye. Okay. And just blend it out. This blending brush is phenomenal. I love it, love it, love it. It works so well with powders and foundations that you can move it from your eye and go straight into the concealer if you have the brush cleanser, which is also important. So then I'll go back through, since I've already done that. I'll just do a little bit more contouring to bring out a little bit more definition in her cheekbones. And again, you don't want a contour that looks too extreme. Unless you're a drag queen, then the more the merrier. But for everyday people that are just trying to do the 5-minute face before they go into work, this is the quickest way to do it. And then you can also slap on some blush, and then you're done. And see how I went straight to the blush? With the same brush. You don't need a million brushes. Unless you're a makeup artist, then you do. Even then you don't. Even then you don't. And then you'll see that the contour has created 2 crease lines right here, and it's just given a little bit of shade to the top. But because she has a shorter forehead, we don't want to over-exaggerate it with too much darkness. Thank you, Lindsay. So now that you know the history behind why contouring came to be about, now that you know the tools that you need, the products that you need, and how to do it through the demonstration, my challenge to you is to get out of your comfort zone, try new things, and fully embrace the contouring world. Thank you so much.